Hey guys, so this is going to be a kind of different video. We've done this in the past. We did this a long time ago, actually. Do you remember reacting to the first Joker trailer together or kind of just discussing it?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay, so basically we're doing the same thing. This
Different
is,
times.
yeah, very, very different times. There's actually a Joker 2. I don't know if you know about that. That's
There's a Joker
happening.
too?
Yeah, there's a whole other movie that we did not react to the trailers of, unfortunately.
Wow. I never thought they were going to do that. Never heard of that ever.
Harry's probably gonna be more involved on the channel, possibly writing his own videos for the channel and helping out with stuff just to have like a joint effort, which will likely increase the amount of content we have. And we want to have a wide range of videos. So, like, there will be videos that are super high production quality. I want to do more streaming, more long form content that I can then turn into short form content. There's also gonna be stuff like this where it's more like discussions. So basically, Comic-Con, they just release a lot of info. I think they showed an entire episode of Cape Crusaders, is that correct?
They did indeed. They premiered the first episode of Cape Crusaders, and I am extremely envious of everyone in that audience. But they revealed as well as that apparently they have gender swapped Oswald Cobblepot, which I'm looking forward to. All the people who will be very frustrated by that, but I
I
personally
mean,
welcome.
hey, like we're getting a penguin show with like kind of classic penguin that you would expect, I guess. It doesn't have the monocle, but you know, it's this is penguin that we're watching right now. Why would you want another show with a similar penguin? Like, wouldn't you want some
Yeah,
variety, you know?
and it's like, there's room for other interpretations in these things, I think, and I'm never going to be like bored, with them saying something new.
And,
If I
and it's
saw
penguin. Like we see
it's yeah,
penguins so
honestly,
often. Like I'm not upset at all. Honestly, I'm more upset penguins in the show than
yeah, right. Like that's exactly what I was about to say. Because when I saw him in the trailers, like what the like they're putting him in. I thought we were kind of like I thought we said what we needed to with him. So this has me a lot more interested. I have to say I'm very because there's a lot of avenues that you could go with that. It mightn't just have to be that it's a gender swap. You know what I mean? Like you could really, I think, the gender change in that I think could really open up a different avenue for the character and give it a different motive and perspective. And I think that'll be fascinating. This show is doing fantastic. I think people have received like the full 10 episodes or whatever it is, and people are giving it incredible reviews. Apparently, Hamish is absolutely unbelievable as Batman.
oh yeah, I'm so excited for the voice actor like that. People were a little bit off about it, like our friends and stuff, but I was like, no, this
I'm
is
down the
great.
road on.
This is
Yeah,
perfect. This is perfect.
this
I
is
don't care.
perfect. This is what I've been waiting for forever. It's actually like because you remember when we were doing Ace of Hearts, of course. I sent you the New Frontier clip
Right?
of that guy's voice. That's what this really reminds me of, but just taking up another notch. I'm exhilarated, man. I can't wait for Thursday to watch that shit.
We didn't do a reaction to that trailer, but I think I really like the direction it's going in. I think I talked about this on like a Gotham Knight stream. My only issue with the trailer was the 3D animation of the cars, but I
Uh,
can't really be upset because that's literally what every animated anything does. Like they probably do that in like Invincible too, right? Like so many like animated vehicles. I guess it's just way easier to do that. It's very jarring for me, but everybody does it, so I can't be too upset about it. But other than that, the animation looks really good. The art style looks really good. It gives me BTAS vibes, and that's great, but also seems
also a bit
new.
new. Yeah, bit twinkled, and I like the period piece, and I think I obviously I'm a little like I do art and stuff, and I grew up watching BTS, so I'm a little sour that we don't have quite like the same smooth animation that we used to get back in the day when WB used to hire Japanese studios. But I've learned from Invincible Man that when the narrative is good and when the story is super good, it drives everything else home. So if that's the same here, I'm not going to be complaining about some CGI cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're taking a hit at me there, but
No, I'm not. No, of course not.
other thing I wanted to say is I have two things to talk about. One is the Jester character, which is kind of their Harleen Quinzel. That is Harleen Quinzel, right?
Yeah, Harleen Quinzel, and in this version, from what I am aware, is Bruce's psychiatrist.
That
And
is I love that because that is like I have a feeling that it's gonna be similar to Batman Imposter a little bit,
yeah,
but even more
exactly.
sinister because the therapist is now a villain.
Yeah, right. And I think I because I love that story. I love Batman the Imposter, but I my biggest issue with that story is that he keeps going back to Leslie Tompkins, who is his psychiatrist in that rendition as well. But their meetings are very sparse. You don't really get
Empty
they're there to move
promises.
forward. Yes, exactly. This characterization, I think, is going to be very special because I think Harley is a type of character who people have been kind of a little bored of in recent years. I think there's only so much you can do with the archetype that was presented with her, and I think a lot of writers were lost. I'm not putting any judgment on Harley. I love Harley, but
Recently there is like the Harley we have now, like take honestly the Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a great example where Harley in that game is just kind of written to be like the movie counterpart, which is the new Harley and like the new kind of even in the comics in the shows like she has her own show. I think that's like 2 seasons and she's a totally different character. I like this character because it's more she's not just like someone that is used.
yeah,
She is her
Joker's
own.
not involved in this
Yeah,
version.
she's like her own individual. But that differs so much from like the previous version where she's just kind of like I guess like the villain sidekick, which is kind of demeaning. It's cool sometimes. But I like this interpretation because it's similar to the newest version of her that you see in like the Suicide Squad movie and stuff, but at the same time, I don't there's no reference of Joker at all really.
No,
And it feels like this version of her is literally, she is completely her own. And it would be really cool if the Jester character is something she came up with. It's not a result of being in line with Joker or anything like that.
I think with what they're doing with these characters is they're doing kind of blatant switches. Like for example, I believe Bruce Timm it was, and I'm not gonna quote because I'm just gonna lightly paraphrase. He said that he wanted to do it so that Harley, as a psychiatrist, that's her bubbly side. That's who that's who she shows to Bruce anyway. And that's the side that we're kind of accustomed to seeing from Harley, but then as the Jester, that's the sinister side that they've never really gotten to fully endorse with the character before. And I'm really looking forward to that. And especially if Joker's not in the chair either, because whether they ever end up introducing that character or not, it makes me wonder what the possibilities are. And either way, it's something fresh. And I think with so much stuff that's been going on with Batman recently, I think it's a really exciting time to be a Batman fan because I think things are changing. And I think fans are really looking for change. I'm so happy to hear about all this stuff. And also for a lot of people who kind of are skeptical of the change, I think if there's anybody who has the right, ironically, despite some of the terrible shit Bruce Timm has created, the Killing Joke, I think he has the right to twist this character in this way, having created her back in the 90s. And I'm just really looking forward to this new take of her.
When we get trailers, the trailers aren't really indicative necessarily of the content, especially for video games, but less so for like movies and shows. But it still exists there where you can get a completely different idea from a trailer about a movie than like what it actually is. And so that could be the case here, but it seems like I don't know. It's not going to be a super deep show. It doesn't seem. It doesn't seem like it's going to totally change the way that Batman is characterized, which is something I've personally wanted for Batman, and I think Harry kind of wants for Batman. I think in some ways because this is targeted towards kids, like it is a cartoon and it is trying to be like BTAS, I don't think it's going to like do anything that is going to push the needle for Batman from a like philosophical and like writing stance. I could be wrong. I really want to be wrong about that, but if I am wrong, I'm not too upset about it. Like, how do you feel about that?
In terms of like what the audience for the show is, I'm not sure. Of course, when it's like an animated thing, I think the plans early on were that it was going to debut on Cartoon Network, and HBO. So I think, yeah, like unfortunately, it is kind of, it's still going to be in that, level where children can still watch, and it's not going to quite go that extra mile. It's not going to throw both its feet in the water. But either way, I think sometimes when it comes to characterizing these, icons pretty much that we have, I think you don't necessarily need to throw yourself in too much. I think if you're able to kind of tweak the world around it and you're able to kind of spawn and summon the ideas, I think they'll come out of themselves naturally. And this has already been picked up for a season too. And I mean, the show could start this way, where the writing is kind of, engineered in a certain way so that it's enjoyable for all sorts of viewers, but we really don't know what direction it could take. The way they've described Bruce in this, and I'm talking Bruce Wayne here, not Batman, he's not by any means real when he's Bruce Wayne. The only person that he is in himself is Batman. And of course, Matt Reeves is involved with this, and I trust Matt Reeves with his perspective on the character. You don't build a house in a day, you know? I've been
Right.
wanting to see the character do some crazy stuff for a long time and go into some more deeper philosophy, take more responsibility in some of his identities that he possesses and also some of the actions that he takes. And I also want the character to face more consequence. Because I think a lot of Batman fans, and I even speak for myself when I say this, when criticisms are leveled against him, I think a lot of us freeze up. I
Freeze
think a
up
lot
and
of
you find an excuse. Like
you find an excuse,
even
right?
though the excuse was different when Batman was created. Now we have like a new excuse where it's like, well, that's just a part of his character or whatever. But I think what you're saying is really true. Like, think about maybe Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan was not allowed to do whatever he wanted immediately. He had to prove himself. Like, I
Yeah,
don't, he probably would not have called it Batman Begins, but that was like a mandate, had to be called Batman Begins. Then he gets the Dark Knight. They literally let him do whatever the hell he wants, and you get this like crazy movie that totally changed Batman forever. And it's not even called Batman, it's called The Dark Knight.
yeah,
A really great example that you're kind of, I think, capturing is probably Adventure Time, where Adventure Time started out, it's a kid's show. Like, I mean, it really is a kid's show. And
yeah.
at first, the first 3 seasons, I love this show. Me and Harry love this show. I've
Adore
rewatched
it.
it. I'm like rewatching it currently. And when you watch those first 2 or 3 seasons, it really is kind of like mandated type stuff. It's not that deep, but you're gonna see, I'm sure, even if you haven't seen the show, you've probably seen memes or just out of context dialogue or anything from this show, and you're like, wow, that's like really deep for a kid show. It really, I'm not sure how they got some of this stuff aired in the later seasons because it goes up until I think 10 seasons. There's some deep stuff in there, so I think this show could be the same way. Like, they have to prove that this is a profitable show that people are going to watch, that kids will watch, that adults will watch, and then they can do some interesting stuff later.
Everyone is talking about how they want this in a Batman movie, this in a thing. When I saw Daredevil, I was like, that's what I want for Batman. That's what I want. I want to watch this guy develop over time and see how it really affects him. And I want to eventually, as the story unfolds and the character progresses, the criticisms that are leveled against him in real life and the criticisms that are leveled maybe against the show in future become plot points. And I think that's when the character is at his best. When the
Right.
criticism people freeze up and are terrified of talking about are addressed. And I think this, from the way they're talking about it, they're not apologetic about the character. They're not necessarily acting like they're kind of on his side. They're very open about the fact that he's this tortured individual
I think that
who is,
might be Matt Reeves'
yeah,
influence.
definitely, absolutely. And with the steps he's taken, especially with this right here, the Penguin, like who knows what's waiting for the character? The seeds have been planted now, and I think there's a better horizon for him.
I haven't watched the 2004 show, but like each episode kind of doesn't really follow after the previous one.
Yeah, it's an episodic structure where each episode is its individual thing. You see, the thing with the 2004 show, I grew up watching the 2004 show. I was born in 2004, so I mean, that's in a way that's almost more my introduction to Batman than BTAS is. But unfortunately, in looking back on that show, a lot of like the villains in it, I think, are extremely kind of superficial. My biggest example of this is Mr. Freeze from Heart of Ice in the 90s to just a guy who's stealing diamonds. There's pros and cons to that show, but I don't think that show ever really, so people now say it's like the most underrated Batman. And I would agree, but I don't think that show ever necessarily did anything to cement itself as like the Batman. You know what I mean? I think this show, whether you like it or not, this is going to reinvent the character for a new modern audience. This is going to be the show that children are going to go grow up watching. This is going to be the understanding that people are going to have of the character. In the same way, back in '89, people saw Michael Keaton in theaters, don the cape and cowl, and then went home, and in a couple of years started watching BTS.
And that just makes it so much more important, like how they portray the character to this kind of new audience. We haven't had Batman show in a while, and the last one we had was kind of, I didn't even watch it. Every time it came on, I was like, this is like, oh, get it away from me. It was the 3D one, Beware the Batman, I think it was called. But yeah, this is kind of our current feelings about the Cape Crusader. We will, of course, me and Harry, we plan to do reviews. We want to review the show. Does the show come out episodically or all at once?
All in one day, baby.
All in one.
All in one
See, I
fucking
actually
day.
don't like that because, I mean, I like that as a viewer, but as a YouTuber, I don't like that.
Yeah, because if it came out weekly, we could review it an episode at a time.
I mean, we
And keep
still
people's interest. But
could. We still could. I mean, let us know in the comments. Like, we could actually not just a review necessarily, but really actually look into each episode and actually like analyze it to some extent. Yeah, we could do something like that. So it's not just like a review, like, yeah, this one was good. Next.
yeah, yeah, no, none of that stuff.
But yeah, look forward to that, and we'll probably review other things like the Penguin and stuff.
Very good month for being a Batman fan around here.